So, hi everyone, and a warm welcome to you all. This is our third Find Your Fire Friday. For those of you who might know me, and again, I know that you all know me, I'm Wendy Yoching. Healing Spaces Caribbean is my game, and I'm the founder of this wonderful Find Your Fire tribe. And it is my pleasure to share every Friday an exciting, interesting, fascinating, chi elevating event. With usually, I would try to source the information, the opportunities from people in our community. And then I'll also plan to bring in guest speakers of interest once I get the feel of what you guys really want and need to hear and to learn and grow into. So today we have from our community, but she has also her own very special communities, the wonderful and amazing and talented and just a fabulous human being, Cecelia Tement. Is that too much, you think, Cecelia?
I mean, I love it. You can introduce me like that all day, every day.
So we have her. She is somebody you just have to get to know, and she has an amazing story to share. Her topic today is From Fear to Love. And Cecelia, I think that you'd be best to introduce yourself more thoroughly. So I'm going to hand right over to you, and let's get into it.
Okay, amazing. So it's so nice to meet you all. Thank you all for joining me today. So I am a soulful business coach and an energy healer and a channel. And I started from a childhood of trauma. I grew up in child abuse. I went through massive depression, suicide attempts, anxiety, you name it. I've been through the ringer. And the reason why I'm here now is because of what I've journeyed through. And so one of the things that I think is so crucially important is that in this life, we allow ourselves the opportunity to heal, to transform, to take our pain and turn it into purpose. And so really what I've done is I've just come from where my past was, which was steeped in trauma and divisiveness of my soul, and I've been able to transition that through really diving into myself, developing self-love and understanding what it means to uplift my fellow human. And so that's really what I do and who I am in a nutshell.
A wonderful package. Cecelia, do you need to share the screen today? Do you have any slides or anything that you want to show us, or you're going to just talk?
I am a no slide kind of gal. I'm a talking kind of gal. So I love having conversation. I welcome questions. I'm just going to be chilling with you guys and sharing a little bit of my heart.
And I am going to make you big. With you.
Oh, you're going to make me big. Oh gosh. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. Take it over the screen now. So basically, part of my story and my journey and what I want to talk about when it comes fear transforming into love is I want to first say that I believe that every emotion is actually love in disguise. That what ends up happening is that we come from different types of pain, fear, guilt, shame, blame, anguish, and all of those emotions really are love that has been clouded by, the garbage that we tell ourselves, the garbage that people put upon us, the things that have been passed down. Generational trauma is very real. Pain and trauma lives in our bodies. And so sometimes we create and recreate these same circumstances over and over. And part of what I've discovered in my life is that I was unconsciously creating as much toxicity as I possibly could. So I don't know if any of you can all relate, like feel free to unmute or type it in the chat, but I have been in, really in many ways, and I didn't realize this until I started healing, but in many ways by choice, I put myself in horrible situations with narcissistic people, because that's what I was trying to make real for myself. I was trying to compensate for the lack of love from my narcissistic and abusive father by clinging to and attracting more narcissists in my life. Terry's saying I could definitely relate, right? And this is the thing. So what happens is when we feel lesser about ourselves, we think that we only deserve a certain degree of love. And a lot of the times it's this false kind of surface love. And so part of, what I think is so important is that we know the difference between surface love and real love. And real love for me is feeling whole inside of myself. So when I started to figure that out, all of these toxic circumstances and people just started to fall away. And just recently, I think I had like one of the biggest shifts of my life in really losing the last part of that toxicity, because I was still kind of, falling into old habits here and there where I would see that someone maybe wasn't for me, but in my effort to want to people please and make people happy, I would, coalesce and say, okay, sure, I'll let you in my energy, but that was a choice that I should make, but I learned from it. And so this is where I want to encourage all of you, when you're transforming fear into love, you have to stop being afraid to set healthy energetic boundaries. You have to stop being afraid of saying what you want to say to people, sharing your truth and your voice from a place of authenticity. And the more we do that, the more we come alive. So I'd love to get any questions while I'm talking. Please pipe in. I don't want to just be the one speaking. I want you guys to come with me on this journey.
Cecelia,
Cecelia.
Sorry, Christine, go ahead.
Yes.
Oh, is that okay?
Yes.
Please.
Oh, but Cecelia, I can so identify with what you are saying there, because quite recently I had this experience where I had a friend from a long time ago. I'd do anything for this friend. And I hadn't seen this friend for quite a few years. I said to myself, why don't you reach out? And the moment that person started speaking to me on the phone, I felt myself falling into a black hole because the conversation was so negative. I did my best to get out of the conversation as far as possible and made a decision at that point in time that what I would do is I would love that person from afar. I would care for that person, but I could not again put myself in a position to receive so much negative energy, because I have to take care of my own energetic boundaries, as you were saying. So that's my, we're not hearing you. You are muted.
I'm so sorry, my dear. I lost everything that you said because it was frozen for me and they kicked me out. Now I'm back. So I sincerely apologize.
No, that's okay. That's okay. So
summarize that for me once more.
Okay, so what I was saying is that I had said to myself recently that I had not reached out to one particular friend in quite a long time. And I am going through a process of sifting. So if I said, well, I haven't spoken to this person in such a while, let me reach out and see if anything with that person has changed. But from the moment we got on the phone, now things can be going wrong, but it's how you communicate the experience that makes a huge difference. So I just felt myself in the moment falling into a black hole. And I listened, I offered empathy. And then at the end of the conversation, I said, look, I've got to go have another meeting, and made a decision in the moment that I would not allow my energy to be contaminated, so to speak, because I have to be responsible for my energy. And as I'm listening to Dr. Joe Dispenza last night, and he says, you have a choice. You have a choice. So that was my choice in the moment. I can love that person from afar. I could pray for that person. I could even type and send them positive messages.
Yes.
But I can no longer expose myself to receive the words, because words have so much power, and the energy behind the words, they have so much power.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. It's so true, Christine. And I'm proud of you, because that's a hard thing. Like I recently had to cut out a friend I'd had for 20 years, right? Wow. Because I thought I knew it was time. And here's the thing, and you might notice this, and I'm sure all of you have seen this, as you move through your personal journey, as you start to heal and you lose the old parts of yourself, it's like shedding an old skin. Those people who you used to spend so much time with, they no longer resonate with you. You actually can't even be around it because it's not the same. It's not the same. And the old version of you that maybe didn't feel so good was cool with it at the time, because for whatever reason, that person served their purpose in your life at that point, but they no longer can. And so being able to say, and strongly so, say, no, you know what? This person is not for me right here, right now. That's a brilliant decision.
And a courageous one.
Big time. Love it. Thank you for sharing that. That's amazing.
welcome.
That's amazing. I've lost I feel like, honestly, I had to cut out like a whole section of my old life. Like, I literally don't even know who that person is anymore. And like, meeting Lisa, for example, was like such a blessing, because she's such an incredibly pure soul, right? And then she's the one that introduced me to Wendy. But I feel like when you know people of pure heart, you can't help but gravitate towards them and have them gravitate towards you. When you're forming a sisterhood, it works that way,
Absolutely, I agree.
Lisa has her hand up. Over to
Yes.
you.
I'm proud of myself to learn how to do this for my. I'm sorry, I'm also prepping for a consultation while we're meeting, but everything you're saying is resonating so much. And I think about each time I up level to another place where I'm more aligned with my core and my authenticity and my purpose, I shed a little bit of who I once allowed into my inner circle. And with each person, it's a little heartbreaking, yeah, because I love them so dearly. But with each person that I shift away from is replaced with threefold of new people, the right people into the right space at the right time. And it's so affirming that when you're able to have the courage to do that, and also from a place of love. It's not that you don't love your friend anymore, or that you don't, for example, I divorced my husband, and there were certain friends, like yours, Christine, that I said to them, I said, you're not making me feel very good right now. And I need to take a break, and that's why you're not going to hear from me for a while. And who knows, maybe one day our paths will cross again. Very, very hard for me to do that.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
When you, Lisa, thank you for sharing that. And Lisa, I don't know how you put your hand down, but you'll have to do that, right?
It's click on the exact same button that you clicked on to put your hand up. It's the same button you click on to take your hand down.
Christine, what
Okay.
I can't
I'm learning.
take her hand down. She has to take her own hand down. Okay, thank you. So I have a question for you guys who have been practicing this. What happens when you have someone who won't let you walk away, who keeps coming after you like this, kind of like, yes. Have you had that experience? In other words, you know that you need to move on and have them on the distant healing list. And we have distant healing lists, but what if they keep coming? Have you had any experience with that?
That's interesting. I think, I'm very good at like very lovingly saying things to people where they don't even feel offended when I'm telling them something that maybe was not so easy. Like, I don't know what it is. I think, again, it's an energy thing. Like, people, for me personally, anyway, people are just naturally falling away who aren't for me anyway, because if you can't keep up, they're not going to stay on the train, right? So that's how it goes. But I very lovingly can say to somebody, I really appreciate you and everything that you're sharing with me, but right here, right now, I just don't feel like we're aligned. And so, maybe that will change at some point in time. But at this moment, I really feel like it's better if we just, in full respect of one another, take some space. And then I take space, so, and if I have to, I've blocked people before when I've had to, because you have to guard your own goodness. You do, because I find also, as you shine your light brighter, and I'm sure some of you have found this too, that people who are stuck in their shadow selves or having a hard time, they're drawn to the light, right? So it's like moth, flies to honey. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait a minute, what am I going to do, right? So you have to be you have to have the kind of presence where you state your boundaries early so that there's not as much of that. But I hear what you're saying, Wendy. It's not easy.
And I also say, keep your center, always keep your center. Now,
Yes.
Cecelia, tell us a little bit about your journey from fear to love, if you don't mind, whatever you feel comfortable.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. So I grew up.
I ask you because I believe in my group, there are people who will resonate with your message there. I
grew up in child abuse. And so in that child abuse, when I was 8 years old, and this this is my first memory of the abuse. So from about 8 to 14 is what I remember the most. And there were 3 particular incidents that stuck out in my mind. But the very first one was, I remember I was putting together a puppet show for my dad and my mom, and my dad was the abuser. And I had pushed together these boxes and I was all excited. And they came home from work, and I remember popping up with this little sock puppet and trying to put on this show. And my dad just lost it immediately, was just screaming, because he's like, what does she think she's doing? Those are, the boxes were full of very expensive vases from China. And so he just freaked out, and he was screaming and yelling and upset. And my mom tried to stop him from screaming at me. And so he started hitting her, and then he tried to punch her. And so I remember standing in between, and I was quite small, and he's very tall. He's like 6 feet tall. So I stood between, and I remember pushing him back when he was trying to punch her, and he ended up punching a hole in the wall. And that was a very defining moment for me, because I remember walking by that hole and seeing it every day of my childhood and thinking about what was happening. And it was weird, because it was even more challenging, because my dad was being a pure narcissist. He was, in many respects, even though he was abusive, he was also overtly loving, right? So there would be these crazy moments of like, oh, look at my beautiful daughter, isn't she amazing? And, I used to sing, so he used to use that as a point of like vanity and pride for himself, I want to say,
Yes.
right? So he would boost me up and tear me down all in the same breath. And so me as a kid, I'm looking at him, and all I ever wanted my whole life was for my dad to love me. So all of these circumstances over and over again, I just couldn't even and I remember my whole life until I was 40 is when I started healing. So it took me from 14 to 40 to actually really start the process. And I would replay these very distinct memories. Another time I was doing a project, I said my pizza was cold. He freaked out on me. And I remember he chased me down the hall, and I locked myself in the bathroom, and he started beating down the door. And he's like, how dare you say that my food's not good enough for you, you ungrateful child. Like it was horrible. And then he was going to break down the door. So I thought, okay, I'm going to rush out. So I ran out. I was in my nightgown. I was barefoot, and I ran. He tried to pull me with my arm, and then he ended up throwing me out of the house. So he pulled me down the stairs and threw me out of the house. I was in the snow, and I remember not knowing where to go, being 13. And I ran to the corner, and all these cars were just passing me by. I was like crying. I didn't know what to do. And then I ran to the side of the house, and I just cowered by the side of the house in the snow, in my bare feet. And I'm rocking back and forth. And he comes out and he's screaming my name. He's like, Cecelia, get back in here. And I was like, I'm not going in there. And I sat there and I cried, but it was too cold. I had no money. I had no clothes. I had nowhere to go. So I ended up going back inside. And I remember him, after he calmed down, crying in my lap, begging for my forgiveness. So, these kinds of games that would be played with my mind. So anyway, he divorced my mom when we were 14, went to Hong Kong, did business there. My parents finally got divorced. And from that time when he wasn't even here, I was still struggling in my head, trying to accept everything. So that's when I again went through like suicidal tendencies, depression, all of that stuff. And the thing that changed my life, I had 2 children, and he came to visit 4 years ago, and he was sitting in my living room, and I said, that's it. I'm going to confront him about everything, because everything was very the happiness veil was pulled over. We were all being very polite, very nice, oh, dad, grandpa's coming for a visit. But none of this was pleasant in my mind. So I finally, I remember the day, it was December 20th, and I chose the day, and I said, Dad, I need to tell you something. I was like, I'm furious. I'm angry. You've hurt me my whole life. My whole life has been a shambles because of you. Like, I blamed him for everything. I put it all out there. We cried. It was very raw. It was very real. And about 15 minutes later, my best friend was killed by a drunk driver. She was 40 years old. And she is the person who is the biggest influence in my life. We talked a million times a day. We worked together. I met her at the shelter for abused women that I had worked at, and we became the closest. She was like a twin soul. So when I found out that she had died, it just took all the anger out of my body. And I said, no more, Cecelia. Like, where am I going to change my life? Where am I going to shift so that I don't suffer anymore, that I'm not suffering on purpose, because that's what I was doing. And that really moved everything for me. And I said, no more. And so at that point, we reconciled. It was beautiful. I ended up writing a book about it, and I shared it with him. And it was painful for him because there were some very harsh truths in there. And he said, Cecelia, can I write a letter at the end of the book? And I'm like, yeah. And he sent me his letter, and it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen in my life. He basically encouraged people to stop abusing their children, to heal from their past, to realize their influence that they have on their kids. And then at the end of the letter, he said, still gets me. At the end of the letter, he said that a second of your love is worth a century of mine. And I thought, you know, and that book has changed our lives together, because now it's, you know, it's been so transformative, because now I know that's my purpose, is that I fully and freely forgave him. He came to me in reconciliation. And now I use that in my everyday purpose, my everyday work. And I help, you know, and it's funny, I help business women to heal from all of their trauma so that they can show up in their businesses. And I never thought that would be the thing, but that's the equation that it's taken. And it's so beautiful, because I'm activating abundance in their lives by teaching them how to feel abundant about themselves, by teaching them how to fall in love with themselves.
And Cecelia, you specialize in helping women who have been abused, yes? In business.
Anyone who's been through trauma, but it doesn't have to be that. Whatever you're suffering through, because we all suffer through something.
And would you be able to share the name of your book with us?
Yes, it's called If I Could, I Would. If anybody's interested in it, I literally just ditched my website because I don't use it for anything. But if anybody's interested, please feel free to message me. I'm happy to get in touch with you about it and send you a signed copy if you wish. But it's beautiful. It's a small book. It's going to take you no time at all to read. It's a children's book, but it's written that way because I wrote it from my perspective as a child. But it's beautiful, and I'm really proud of it.
Thank you so much. Wow.
Thank you.
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
How do you go about this reconciliation process if there is no, I mean, this forgiveness process is just like on one end, but there's no reconciliation? So you know how, I mean, I can relate to your story about different types of trauma growing up.
Yeah.
I mean, not necessarily child abuse or anything like that, but you know, similar situations where you forgive the person, but then the other person does not, there's no reconciliation because the other person has not come to the table. How do you move from that when it's one-sided, but you know you need to forgive and move on?
Energy is powerful. Energy is powerful. The forgiveness sometimes is for your sake and not necessarily for theirs, you know? And the fact is, people who are abusers or abusive are generally they're narcissists. If someone is a narcissist, they don't see the reality of the situation, they see their own reality.
That's right.
And so part of the healing comes with coming to your own closure and understanding that whether or not that person ever comes to the table, it does not matter. What I do with my clients is I help them to change the memory and the meaning around what's happened, so that, you know, our imaginations are more powerful than our logic. So when we take our imagination and we reattach a different meaning, a different story, a different understanding, we find the lesson in it and we dig deeper. That's what helps us to shift past it. And so really, perception is power, 100%. And for all the women that I've helped to heal, the one thing that I think is the most impactful is for them to be able to see that you don't have to stay in that same stuck story over and over again, because we're just expanding the old story as opposed to writing something completely new. And I'm a firm believer that the past doesn't exist and the future is not here either. We only have what we do in this present time, in this present moment. And so that's what I focus on, is what do you want to feel right here and now? What do you want to perceive and to position and to shift so that you can live your life fully and freely as you're meant to. And so that's really what I focus on, so that the forgiveness is more for, I forgive the understanding, and I know that this person is doing what they're doing because maybe it's generational, it's been passed down, maybe they've experienced something in their past that's unhealed, because hurt people, heal people. So when I see that, that's the acknowledgement that helps me, is to recognize that, you know, it's not about blame. It's about our own accountability for, even if it's not our fault, it's our responsibility how we choose to respond for our own good.
Okay.
Charmaine?
Thank you.
Charmaine, may I add something to that? One of the, this is something that comes up with a lot of my guests, my clients as well, forgiveness of hurts that they find it challenging to actually go back and have reconciliation with the person. And there's a very powerful process called the Ho'oponopono that you may have heard about. And if you haven't, I can share it with you. That is very, very effective in helping you find that space where you can then, with your own, in your insights, reframe the story and release the baggage you've been carrying. So if you know, you want, I can also always share that with you as well. Okay, it's part of next weekend's training as well, is to do that. But
yeah, I love Ho'oponopono. I do it all the time. It's very powerful. It's just,
yeah,
it's beautiful. Yeah, it's a mutual forgiveness process. Because the other thing too is that I always see, like, everybody is a human being. Like, even if I think about my dad and everything that he did, it's amazing to me now to see how far I've transitioned in 4 years, where I used to be so angry, so bitter, so upset with him that I couldn't even like speak his name without pain. And now when I think of him, I think of joy, I think of love, you know. And my story is very singular to Charmaine. Like, it's obviously, like, it's very rare that abusers come to the table and recognize these things. Like, it's a singular story, that I know. But I do understand the importance of self-work and how that can shift everything so powerfully that you don't even need the other person's participation, because when you come to your own healing, that is the most beautiful thing you can do for yourself.
and you have help available, Charmaine. You just have to
Yes.
wait. Okay. All right. Cecelia, is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up? Is there anything else you'd like to add to the story, or would you like to share with people who want to get more information from you, how they can reach you or what you offer?
Yeah, you know what? I'm on Facebook. I know Wendy tagged me, so feel free to just connect with me that way. Message me if you will. I'd be so happy to speak with you and chat. But what I do is I help business women who want to show up powerfully online. So me and my business partner, she's a branding artist, Cheryl. And so what we do together is we have these beautiful programs, one-to-one sessions as well. But we help entrepreneurial women to scale their businesses from a place of soul. We just hit our over 100K mark in sales yesterday, which is amazing, in less than a year, you know, and we did it all just by being ourselves. So we're so happy to welcome anybody who's interested in those programs, but please reach out. I'd be thrilled to talk to you. And the one thing that I always say, and I want you to take away and remember, is that you are the light after the dark and the love that you seek.
Beautiful. Cecelia, tell them the name of your Facebook group. That's easy and wonderful and easy to
remember. Absolutely. Yes, it's Successful Soulful Women Entrepreneurs.
Emphasis on the soulful.
Yes, Successful Soulful. I'll just write it in the chat for you guys, but feel free to pull that there. And I should have the link ready for you. Look at that. But yeah, if you look up the group, you'll find me. And go to my Facebook. You'll see my picture there. And feel free to come and find me there and message me.
Okay.
Is it a private group or a public group?
It's we'll welcome you in. It's a private group, but it's visible, so you'll be able to find it. Yeah, we'd love to have you.
Wonderful.
Guys,
it was great meeting you, Cecelia. Time well invested. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all of you. It was such a pleasure. Appreciate you. Thank you, Wendy.
Cecelia,
much love.
Thank you. Many blessings. I hope your message today reaches everybody in my tribe, and those who need you the most reach out to you. Okay, thanks for coming, everyone. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you, everybody.
Namaste.